All right, welcome back. It's now time for us to talk politics, and being the 18th day of March 2025, it's a beautiful Tuesday morning. Of course, we are glad that we're still experiencing some rain in the country, and I think it's a good way to go. If you are ready to plant, please go ahead and do something about it, okay? All right, so let's talk about politics today. Let's take a look at what's happening in the country, state of the nation, what is happening in our political segment, what's happening in our economy, and our socio-economic issues that's affecting us. Our lines will be on later on, 0716 10 3301, 0716 10 3301, that is 0716 10 3301. Our lines will be on, and please tell us, are you getting development wherever you are? What are some of the things that you'd want the government to do for you in as far as our country is concerned? Our members of parliament, our governors, our MCAs, they are having a meeting in Nairobi, a 5-day meeting, which actually was quite, engaging and chaotic at the same time yesterday, demanding several issues that they need to be addressed. And that is some of the things that I want to talk about, including economy. Let's talk about that. I have got Mheshimiwa Robert Basil. He's the gentleman representing our brothers and sisters from Yatta constituency. Mheshimiwa, good morning.
Morning, how are you?
Salama salam, it's been a while. You're well?
Yes, I'm good.
Karibu sana.
Sorry for the loss of your dad.
Sorry about, thank you for that.
Yes.
Asante sana. How are brothers in Yatta doing?
They are well. Now it is the rain season.
Yes.
So people are busy preparing land to be able to grow crops.
Yes.
So I would say everyone is busy, yes, in their farms.
What is new? What are you doing so far to this end? What have you done?
Well, so much. Like now, they come in next week. I will be launching the first Huduma Center in history. Remember, for you to get Huduma services, if you are from Yatta, you have to go to Thika or you have to go to Machakos town. I'm also in the process of finalizing the construction of the first land registry in history. If you want land title deeds, land documents, you have to go to Machakos, I'm also about to open the first KMTC. It's up and ready, so we are just planning for opening. Water for schools, when I was elected, one of the things which I want to deal with was to get water to schools so that the rural schools would be at the same level with urban schools. And actually to boost the growing of trees within the schools. And I'm talking of nutritional crops, to be able to boost the nutrition of learners. During our time, we used to have maziwa ya nyayo. Now we no longer enjoy the same. So to bridge that gap, when you grow food crops within the schools, the students can actually get juice during famine or dry period. So water for schools, as well as try to see how best I could also support the community, with water related, resources. On top of that, of course, the school infrastructure is a big problem. Remember, I have about 200 schools. So I'm rehabilitating, with the CDF kitty. And initially, actually, since in history, I'm also the first MP to start even tiling classrooms, getting now the whiteboards.
Right.
We are also planning to come up with the Wi-Fi hotspots within schools to be able to support learners, to put them at the same level with urban learners. Remember, we're in an exponential age, that is the technology age. And the learners in rural areas should not be left behind.
Yes.
The whole world is moving from to a technology space. So that is some of the many things that I'm doing for my people.
Seems you're doing much for the people of Yatta.
Of course, my mission is to serve.
Yes.
And that's why I offered myself to come and serve.
Where is this money coming from? Is it now from the CDF? And
the money from CDF, if you properly use the money, is not so limited. You can do much with it.
Yeah.
On top of it, of course, we have resources from national government, which we have to tap into, including like now electricity, rural connectivity. The other day, I even hosted the CS for Energy in my area to launch some of the electricity programs. And of course, we have partners. We have JICA and others who are coming in Adi to support us, to be able to transform the constituency and to bridge the development gap between rural areas and urban areas.
Yeah.
So it's a collective responsibility from both the national government, partners who are within, of course, the Trump effect. So much donor programs have been slowed, and some have actually been cut down completely, considering that the United States has been one of the largest donor in Kenya and also in the other parts of the world.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So still waiting for Honorable Godfrey Ruku, who is the Member of Parliament representing Mbeere North, as well as Ishmael Nyaribo, who is an advocate of the High Court. They'll be joining us shortly. But for us, we are on the road. We are to do this. So, Mheshimiwa, a quick question, generally. As a Member of Parliament, your number one role is to legislate. How is Kenya doing, generally speaking? I mean, from your point of view, as a leader in this nation, how is Kenya doing?
Legislation, I don't think we have shortage of laws. The problem we have in Kenya is enforcing the laws.
Yes.
And also ensuring that we uphold and live within the Constitution. We have seen even court orders that have been ignored.
Yes.
The other day, you remember the time of even CAS, where the court ruled it to be unconstitutional. No one no one respected that court ruling. And many other court rulings. We have seen abductions happening in the country, which was so wrong, considering that we are a country that should live and practice particular issues to do with human rights. So when it comes to matters of legislation, I would not say we have a problem in terms of laws. We have so many laws. Of course, we are making amendments. For example, there's a bill I'm crafting. If you look at our police stations, they are crowded with motorcycles.
Yes.
And these motorbikes, most of them actually acquired through loans. And is a source of income for many of the riders. But they are used as exhibits, without a limitation in terms of time that they're supposed to be confiscated or detained in police stations. And you find if you keep a motorcycle, anything with engine within a police station, maybe for 6 months, and that engine is not being run, what happens? It gets damaged.
Yeah.
And the person who borrowed money, for example, to acquire this motorcycle, for instance, you completely deny that person source of livelihood. So that is a double punishment, to use it as an exhibit. So I'm making an amendment to the traffic rules so that we know how many, we limit the time.
Yeah.
Which the police should actually confiscate some of these assets, movable assets, before they are used as exhibits in courts. So we are doing a number of amendments, in our parliament to be able to make lives better for others. And if you come to matters to do with the economy, the other day we passed supplementary budget.
Yes.
And if you look at where most of the money went to, I don't think we get our priorities right. For example, the Trump, one of the effects it has is on health. Remember the PEPFAR program, where many of our Kenyans who are like the TB patients, the HIV patients, and other patients who are dependent on drugs coming from the USA, the government sponsorship. But in our budget, we never factored the effects of Trump in our healthy budget. If you look at very key essential sectors like food production, you can imagine we budgeted, like if you talk of water, we budgeted I think about 18 billion on water. That's so little considering the need to support irrigated agriculture to be able to be self-reliant on matters to do with the food. Kenya, we are net importer of almost everything. And the more you import, it means your balance of trade becomes negative, or balance of payment, because you're importing more than you're exporting. So we should have invested more on key sectors that are going to drive the economy. Talk of electricity, talk of water, talk of roads, but instead you would see more money going, like for example, in the executive, in the office of the president. We put almost close to 2 trillion in the executive, And this has been a trend for quite some time, So if you ask yourself, as a developing nation, how should we budget? Our budget should be in a way that development money, minimum should be 40%, so that at least we can be able to revive the economy and be able to open opportunities for employment. But if you look at ourselves, for example, I would even talk of county governments. You'll see some who have budgeted 10% for development. If you budget 10% for development, how will you get yourself out of poverty? Do you know from 1963, we are still grappling with issues that were pertinent then. We are talking of diseases, we are talking of poverty, we are talking of illiteracy. 61 years down the line, we are still talking of the same issues. So something needs to be done.
Yeah.
And
yes. as you say that, I mean, that also goes back to what even the Auditor General said. I mean, the spending habits that we are experiencing in the country from the national government, from the different departments across the country, and that raises some red flag.
Yes.
In as far as our behavior, financially speaking, is concerned. Then how do we streamline this so that we do not get into that situation where the Auditor General will come back with another report in the next financial year or after every quarter that, yes, Kenya, we are struggling, but again, this is the much that is being spent across the country.
You know, as I've said, we have first to get our priorities right.
Yes.
We should not borrow money and waste the money. For example, I'll ask you a good question. You have just said MCS were meeting the governors in Nairobi. Do you have to bring all the MCS to Nairobi? Why can't you take advantage of technology? You can do a Zoom, you can do Express, you can do Teams, where you bring all these people, you connect them technologically.
Yes.
Instead of spending so much on per diems, people spending in hotels, so much money being spent in just a common gathering. And if you ask them what would be the output of your discussion, you can barely see the value of money in such, And if you look at advanced economies, people actually have embraced technology. They are doing Teams, they're doing Zooms, they're doing Express, where people, instead of coming together physically, they can connect virtually from anywhere in the world or any corner of their country. And that is saving so much money, which would have gone to per diems. But in our country, it's a shame when, for example, our head of state is going to launch a program, you find the entire delegation following him.
Yeah.
Yes, not a bad idea for them to come and witness what's going on. But look at the value of money being wasted in such an exercise. Because people coming, these are Gasla cars, public vehicles, government resources, taxpayers' money to fuel those vehicles. And some areas, they even demand for, of course, per diem, where they have to spend maybe a night there.
Yeah.
And it becomes ridiculous. And at the same time, you are saying we have shortage of cash in the country, So we have to revise the way we are spending. Borrowing, I don't think is a problem. If you look at countries like United States, the debt ratio to the GDP stands at 98%. If you talk of Japan, the debt ratio to GDP stands at over 200%. Ours is at 7%. Of course, if you look at those countries, they borrow money and use the money wisely.
It revolves around the economy.
Yes, but as we borrow the money, it gets to the pockets of few individuals. Kenya now, the money is at hands of few individuals. Majority are suffering. Look at our pay slips. Their pay slip at ICU.
Yeah.
Even some people have lost morale to go to work. It is almost reaching a point where Kenyan will tell you that is a common, I'm talking of the low kind of individual professionals. They almost asking, telling the government, why don't we give you the salary, you give us the tax? Because the government is collecting more tax and leaving so little for individuals to spend.
Yeah.
And if the money was being taken from our pay slips and used prudently, then many Kenyans will not even question. But look at how we use our money.
But then again,
if you look at the distribution of resources, it's not equitably done.
Yes.
When we speak in Parliament and say, why can't we itemize the budget? Deliberately, people ignore. I've said it more than enough on the floor of the House. I say, if we itemize the budget, we are going to boost accountability and transparency. Kenyans will know how their tax is used. For example, you'll know if it is 20 billion or even 400 billion for roads, how many kilometers in your constituency or in your village or in your ward will be rehabilitated, particularly to bitumen standards. If you talk of 18 billion for electricity, for example, you'll know how many villages, households will be connected, put in the grid. If you talk of 20 billion, for example, in water, you'll know how many hearthy ponds, how many households will be linked to water. But today, the money is lumped.
Yeah.
It is the jurisdiction of those hold, in the key ministries to decide where to take that money.
And now
that's where
the key issue of accountability.
political manipulation come into play. And also you allow graft to set in because there is no tracking of the usage of these resources.
And now when you hear the Auditor General coming out with this report,
yes,
it's not something new that, it's happening. It seems that all of us are now immune, or if people who are entrusted with the public money, everybody's now immune to such kind of reports because there is no action taken.
Correct. And also some of the reports are manipulated for information.
Okay.
Remember, I'm sorry to say this, but corruption has completely got to our country in a way that we may not get ourselves out of it unless we change the entire culture, our mindset, everything. Even the same auditors, they are bribed to prepare reports that would indice the different institutions.
Yes.
Don't just believe on what you see. Some of these reports are manipulated. If you find some institutions they don't have the money to bribe them, then they are painted red. If you oil them nicely, then they make the report sweeter for you. This is happening, Let's not assume.
Yeah.
And that's why there is so much to be done in this country. If we really need to get ourselves out of the situation we are in and put this country to the path of development, it needs patriots. People will know that we will be remembered for the legacy, for what we have left behind. Remember in other countries like, I'm talking of, for example, the US.
Yes.
Because if you talk of their history, is that the democracy is about 200 years. But those people do things for generations to come. Look at now, the other day in Parliament, I asked them, if we want to move or to catch up with the rest of the world, we should also invest in technology, we invest in research and innovation. Just imagine how much money we are putting in innovation and research.
Yes.
So little. Then you ask yourself, how will we even ever be reliant? Remember, we are importing everything because we have invested very little on innovation, research, manufacturing, etc. Those countries that want to prepare for generations to come, they pump money in sectors that will prepare the country to compete with the rest of other countries.
Which, when we look at our debt right now, domestic debt has jumped to 6.12 trillion shillings.
Yes.
And we are going to the next financial year, and of course you've said that you've passed the supplementary budget. What are Kenyans looking at in as far as economy is concerned? And then number two, I also want to ask you this question. Is it the two gentlemen, Ruto Raila pact, is it a unity deal or a survival tactic in politics? Let's answer that when we come back. This now man-to-man talk. I want to serve you tea as we do that. All right, we'll be right back. Stay with us. All right, so in an African society, it's always good to welcome somebody kwako with a cup of tea. Sindio? It's chai. So, Mheshimiwa, we have a cup of tea, all of us. Very well.
Cheers. Do we cheer with tea?
Let's talk to Kenyans. You are in a very good position because as a legislator, that is where laws affecting us are made. So before you talk a break, I ask this question about the domestic debt, which has gone up to 6.12 trillion. From your own understanding, what does this really mean to Wanjiku, and how will it reflect in Wanjiku's pocket? It
means Wanjiku has to embrace for more hard life, particularly in respect to cost of living. Because if you look at the domestic debt, it has actually escalated by about 27%.
Yes.
Last year it was about 4.8%. Now it is 6.12 trillion. Last year was 4.8 trillion. Now it is 6.12 trillion. That is 27% increase. And that increment means that the ripple effect basically to the person at the lower level of the economic ladder, that person will feel more economic pinch. You know, the cost of goods is going to go up because for the government to sustain such level of borrowing and to also to repay the money they have borrowed domestically, they have to increase new taxes. So we are likely to see a more punitive 2025 finance bill because that is the only way the government can raise money to be able to repay the debt. And if we were wise enough to cushion Wanjiku, if we increase domestic debt, that money should be engineered in the sectors that are going to diversify income sources for Wanjiku, for Wanjiku life to be better off. But now Wanjiku life will be even more severe economically. If you look at, for example, as I've mentioned from onset, the taxes that were introduced, there is the housing levy, affordable housing, that is a tax because that money we don't, it's been, they say they construct affordable housing, which will be sold to Kenyans at a later stage. If you talk of the SHA chief thing, many Kenyans are paying more taxes to be able to repay for that. If you talk of, you know, the fuel levy, now the fuel percentage was increased from 8% to 16%, 100% increment. And all this is contributing to increased cost of living. Because remember, if you are a manufacturer and the cost of electricity has gone up, you transfer the increased cost of power to the consumer. And the consumer is a Wanjiku, the hustler who is in the streets. And that is how the Wanjiku is going to feel more pain when you're repaying for this increased debt. So it is not a good situation for a common man and a common lady in the streets because now the situation will be much harder than it was last year.
What's in the supplementary budget?
Well, supplementary, as I've stated, if you talk of roads, for example, we budgeted, I think, about, if I look at my records, about 198 billion, which is, again, we don't know where that money, which roads are going to be repaired with that money. Because our budget, I've said, is not itemized. And that gives room for political manipulation, where the president will decide, I'm going to construct a bridge at Kangemi. And when you ask him, where is that money? In supplementary, it was not clearly indicated, you know, or he goes and says, I'm going to put this number of kilometers, or I'm going to do this and this, you know. But you see, if it was itemized, then all Kenyans will be able to track the usage of their resources. If you talk of sector like the electricity, we budget 55 billion, which is very little, considering most of the rural areas have less than 10-20% electricity connected or connectivity. People are still in the dark, and it has reached a point they have taken it as a norm, because for 61 years they have never seen electricity in their households, you know. And you can imagine with electricity connectivity how economy can be re-engineered. We are talking of saloons, we are talking of welders who can do welding, you know, barber shops, and so many other sectors that could open employment opportunities right in the rural areas. That's not happening. If you talk of water, we only budget 18 billion, and we want to be self-reliant on matters to do with the food. Are we really serious? Are we getting our priorities right? That's so little. If you talk of executive, the office of the president, we gave almost 2 trillion. The executive. So you ask yourself, do we really need to pump such amount of money at the office of the president? You know, of course, any office has staff, they have expenditure, but we have to be reasonable so that if we borrow and make life harder for common man, let that money be channeled in sectors that are going to make life better for common Kenyan. Because these are the people who are feeling the pinch. Remember, the rich don't even notice the new taxes that are introduced because their life is normal. Their students or their kids will go to school in expensive schools normally. They are going to continue fueling, buying expensive cars, living luxuriant lifestyles because they can afford it.
Yeah.
But what about the majority? If you talk of health sector now, very few can afford health. If you, many of our, even I'm talking of, like, for example, even our security guards. They go with that the SHA card is not accepted, is not honored by most hospitals. But we are trying to live in denial. Let's not be an escapist of reality, but admit that things are not right and we need to correct it. It's not about politics. We are speaking, and me, I always tell that people, I speak as a patriot. I don't care what people say about what I tell them. But it would be unfortunate if I try to hide and assume things are okay. I should tell them, this is not right, let's correct it. Because generations to come will appreciate us, or they're going to condemn us based on what we'll have done for them.
I see that. When it comes to that bit of the budget and what we should be expecting,
yes,
if you're to sit in that committee, first of all, and start prioritizing what Wanjiku should be getting more on, probably just a random list, what would you prioritize if you're the chairman?
If I was the chairman of budget, first I'll make sure the budget is itemized. That would be the first way to seal the money that get lost to individuals' pocket. Because when you itemize, even the person at the farthest corner of this country will know from the budget that is being prepared for the country and for him or for her, this is what I expect from my area. And then I look at key sectors. We talk of agriculture. And agriculture is not about fertilizers. I've been hearing the song of fertilizer for so long. Not all areas need fertilizers because you only take fertilizers based on research. Empirical data will tell you certain areas need fertilizers. Certain areas, their land is so fertile because tillage has not been exploited. Like the entire Ukambani, you don't need any fertilizers. Go now when it has rains, grass immediately sprout. Telling you don't need fertilizer in those areas. Then I'm going to invest on manufacturing. I went to a country where many people think is a war-torn country, like Pakistan. Pakistan today is self-reliant. Actually, it doesn't even need the United States. They manufacture literally everything.
Yes.
Do you know even World Cup, they supplied balls that were used in Qatar. It came from Pakistan. Clothes that you find in designer clothes in Italy, they come from Pakistan. Textile industries. Ours, we are importing everything. So you need to get it right on manufacturing. And for manufacturing factories to thrive, the raw materials have to support local industries. So you invest in agriculture to supply raw materials to these factories so that there is continuity in the value chain. Then you invest in, and within agriculture you talk of irrigated agriculture, so that your people, like border riders, most of them are there not because they should be border riders, but there is no alternative source of livelihood. So if you have proper irrigation farms and you have contract farming between the productive population and the buyers, the millers, then you'll get a lot of people to meaningful employment, and that is going to support manufacturing. Then I'm going to invest in health. You cannot have a sick nation, a population of people who cannot afford health, and you say you are progressive. That is a lie to yourself.
But again, Mheshimiwa, parliamentarians can also be blamed for this. I mean, Kenyans
we are mixed, my friend. With the moment we shun away from party politics, that will be the beginning of a better country.
Is there anything Parliament can do right now?
What will you do? And if you talk of now, we have ODM and UDA, they have come together. So it is about whipping to serve the interests of the masters. If the president wants this to be priority number one, and the majority of us is not supposed to be the priority, he whips the members. You get a phone call, those who subscribe to his party. And you are told, I don't want a full stop, I want it as it is. The same applies now to ODM members. The other day, if you play your clips, you remember they were saying Adani deal is bad, but now they are saying it's the best. Why? What changed?
I'll come to politics shortly. But you are also aware that this, somebody would say, it's a fresh stalemate between the national government, the treasury, and even the counties. They are now, from the Senate, they are saying that they want more money, 465 billion shillings the next financial year. What would you make of this?
No, but I mean, if you ask for money, show us the resource of the money. Because why would you ask for more money and you don't see results?
Somebody would argue
Because
that it doesn't matter because it's
unfortunately,
yeah.
You see, for example, let me give you an example. Do we have a meal sector? Meal sector, I mean monitoring, evaluation, accountability, and learning department in any county in this country.
Do we?
No, we don't. And if you have no monitoring, evaluation, accountability, and the learning department in counties, then how are you going to account for the money that you get? How will we see logic model in your planning? There is no logic model. Because for you to track results and ensure whatever you do resonates with the people that you represent, there must be a proper accountability mechanism. And that's why a meal department should be vital and crucial in all county government. But our constitution was so open for them. It is governors to decide what should be done. And that's why a lot of money is pumped there, but people cannot see the results. If you go to hospitals, they are still grappling with drugs, essential drugs. They are not there. But if there was a sector whereby MCS, because those are the people who decide for how the budget should be appropriated at county level, if they prepare and now it is sent to a meal department, who are going to see the logic aspect of what is brought on the table, that will promote accountability, transparency, and the value
Another
of
point
money.
of argument is
but that is not there.
MCAs actually part of their demand, during their
they want administration funds.
Exactly.
And the reason, if you ask them, of course, it will be good for them.
Don't you think there will be duplication of funds of roles?
If they have ward administration fund, that is going to give them independency, autonomy, not to be dependent on governors. Remember, if you are not singing the song of the governor and you are an MCA, you are isolated from a development front.
I see.
Because you have nothing. That independence for you to tell the governor is not right to put money here, or is not right to add more employees, or is not right to do 1, 2, 3, 4.
So you must be in
that voice should be supported by some level of authority on issues that you can manage and control. And that is where the ward administration fund will come in handy. But again, we must ensure we have a meal department. You know, in any GCDF, which many of the busy bodies run to the courts to stop and say it should be scrapped, etc. Before I get any penny for CDF, I have to ensure whatever I present as a proposal makes sense. There is an independent body in Nairobi who receive all proposals from the 290 constituencies. If you come up with let's say, for example, you want to buy, assume you want to buy vehicle for the community, and they don't see sense in it, they'll tell you no, that this one we can't approve. And if they can't approve, they can't give you money. When the money leaves Treasury, it goes to the account of NGCDF board that sits in Nairobi and is an independent body. These are the people who make sure whatever we prepare has logic and is aligned to the law. If you go to county, such a body doesn't exist. And that is why accountability, usage of funds, it's dependent on the governor. We saw immediately when the devolution county government was summed in 2013, we saw some very interesting and ridiculous, laughable news where a governor would buy a chair for about 1 million. I know that was 1 million or something. Even a wheelbarrow. You remember those news?
Yes.
Which were hilarious.
Yeah.
The reason why it was happening is because there was no one to tell him or to tell her what you're bringing on the table is stupid in quotes. Doesn't make sense at all. But simply because they are given the authority to decide without anybody scrutinizing how whether it makes logic in buying or such services or goods, then they do whatever they do. And now that is why 10 years after devolution, we are still not seeing a proper impact on issues to do with bridging the poverty gap and what you call economic dualism, the haves and the have not.
Yeah.
The poverty level are still deepening instead of getting narrowed. Yet we have pumped so much money. If you put in a weighing scale, the amount of money Kenya has budgeted for devolution in the last 10 years, and the results we see, then you'll see the question mark raised there.
I like that. You can sip your coffee, by the way. This is a live show, man to man. Honorable Ruku has not made it, Ishmael, but nonetheless, the show has to continue. Now, Mheshimiwa, let me ask you. 1.5 weeks ago, we witnessed another pact. Call it a handshake, call it a union, call it a get-together.
Broad-based.
Exactly, broad-based and all that. What's your take on this? Because I've not heard you talk about it since then. Why are you so silent about it?
If you talk of broad-based government, I think it has it's a twin-fold kind of issue, analogy, whereby on one side, the president is able to run the government. Because by bringing ODM members on board, it is giving him some form of stability to spearhead a government agenda and to govern the country. Immediately ODM came on board, protests completely were calmed down. They were like, they just vanished. So it is giving him some form of sleep, sleep nights, not sleepless nights. He could not sleep before the union was established.
Yes.
So for president, it's a gain because he's able to govern. But on the other side, it is killing accountability. Check and balance has been weakened in parliament. We are only left not more than 20 members of parliament who are able to stand with Wanjiku and they tell the government, hey, here things are not right. Because majority of over 80% are already with the government now. It's only now the agitated Wamonyoros and the few Wiper MPs who are now with the Wanjiku.
Where do you stand?
Me, I'm with the Wanjiku. I'll always be there to serve the people.
Okay.
Because that is the reason why I left United Nations to come and serve. And if the drive was personal gain, I would not have left my position in the UN to come and serve my people. But I'll always want to see how to be part of history to change the history. The handshake, as I said, in a democracy, there must be a solid opposition. But if we allow opposition to be compromised, then that is not healthy for any governance. It's not in Kenya, all over in the world, because it's opposition that puts the government on check, It is the opposition that will tell the government, you need to go slow on borrowing. You need to revise how you appropriate your resources.
Yes.
You need to do 1, 2, 3, 4, which will be beneficial for citizens. But when everyone is eating the cake, who will talk? They are all eating the cake. Yeah.
So what would you make of it? Is it for unity purposes or for political
It is
survival?
self-interest, basically. Let's put it as it is. It is self-interest. Because Raila has his own interest.
To whose advantage?
Well, the advantage is to the masters. Because as I've said now, president is able to sleep because he knows he can tour most of the parts without getting proper opposition. Demonstrations have completely gone off. And of course, in terms of business, people are able to do their business. So he has gained on that front. But again, the other side, it has weakened accountability because the check and balance has been compromised. Although what is happening is also so precarious. Remember, ODM is actually the one running the government because they're taking over budget. The chair of budget is from ODM party. The CS for treasury is from ODM party. So it is basically...
What did you expect? What did you expect?
Well, it tells, what Raila did is like when you invite a guest and you give these guests one of your servant quarter to stay. You give, you provide residence in the servant quarter. Then after 1, 2, or 3, a few months, the guest will say, I don't feel okay in the servant quarter. I want to enjoy your bedroom.
Yes. That's insane.
And that is basically what is happening. So Raila is enjoying the bedroom. Because when you give out budget. And you know, budget is the most significant.
Those are the key positions
because
in
budget,
Parliament.
as I said, our Kenyan budget is not itemized.
Yeah.
So the president can only make those promises he makes because he has control of budget. So if the ODM guy says, we are not going to give out money for the 1, 2, 3, 4, then it means in principle, you have completely undermined or even frustrated the president. Because how will he get the money of the issues he's promising? If Treasury decides they are not going to release the money, then the government can be put on a stall, you know. That is why those key sectors, budget and treasury, that is finance and fiscal planning, are never left to the opposition in any coalition.
And here we are.
Those are the reserve of the ruling party, and that is the presidency. But when you hand them over, it means there's someone else now who is running the show. You are there more so as a spectator, to use the right word. Yeah. An
interesting way to look at it. But do you think the president's aware of this? Because when you look at the
treasury... But he wants to survive, my friend. Look at June. June 25th June was not... it was not a simple matter.
Yeah.
Remember, there are 3 arms of government. We have the executive, we have the judiciary, and we have the legislature. And the Gen Zs, together with the other protesters who had joined the Gen Zs, came all the way to the 3rd arm of government, and they took control over it. We had to run for safety from Parliament. So it tells you there were only two arms left for the country to completely collapse. That's why you had Raila saying he saved the government from a coup, you know, because initially it started as a civilian coup, then the military came in. So that was not a very good signal for the country. And I think at that particular moment, the president had to go to the drawing board. And he said, for me to survive, even if I have to give out my bedroom, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
That's exactly what he did.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting because there's something you said there, trying to look at it deeply on what it takes, because when you look at the Treasury, who is the CS for Treasury right now, and who is now leading the Budget Committee in the National Assembly, and we are headed towards the direction where budget making is now quite critical. Something to ponder. Coming to this, this story of our very own Margaret Nduta, who is condemned in Vietnam, and the 2 countries, that is Vietnam and Kenya, trying to make, you know, efforts to have that relationship between these 2 nations to solve it. I mean, as a Kenyan who's traveled far and wide, what do you make of this?
You know, any countries need to respect the international law.
Yes.
And that is the only way to safeguard the sovereignty of both countries and ensure sustainability of the diplomatic relations. Because if we don't respect international law, then the bilateral relation is completely watered or squashed. And once you quash the diplomatic relations, then you put the 2 countries at a state of acrimony. And that is not what the international law calls for. You saw the other day Rwanda and the Belgium, where the Rwandese have kicked out the Belgium diplomats, and in reaction, Belgium did the same. And that severes the bilateral relations. So we have the international law, which brings or ensures the ties between 2 sovereign states are able to coexist in a harmonious way. But the moment you allow this kind of the diplomatic ties to be watered, then it means you have dishonored the international law, and that is not what the diplomatic ties calls for. So in principle, then that is not a good thing, because country needs to coexist harmoniously for them to benefit from each other. Yes.
Yeah, and we hope that something's going to be done, because the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, led by P.S. Singoi, you know, they're trying level best, Kenya and Vietnam at least, to sort out the issue. And bring Nduta back home and listen to the cries of the family members. Okay, Mheshimiwa, just as we wind up, a quick question. If an election were to be held next week, what would you tell this government that the government has achieved? Before I come back to you, what are some of the things that you'd list? And I ask this so that you can answer me as a Kenyan who is benefiting from the national government, because whatever is affecting that person in Loyangalani, in Dadaab, also affects you.
Of course, if elections were held tomorrow, what Kenyans would want, or the first demand, will be a better life. And the first thing is to drop is those punitive taxes. If you talk of SHA, SHIF, no Kenyan want to hear those stories. All Kenyans want NHIF to be put back to operations, and the SHIF and SHA to be squashed away. All Kenyans want a proper health. If you talk affordable housing, no Kenyan wants to hear affordable housing. They want it scrapped completely like yesterday. Kenyans want the higher learning model to be reinstated. We're talking of HELB, the funding model, because what they are referring as bandit, whatever it is, no Kenyans want to hear such a thing. They want the original HELB system, HELB, which used to be there during our time, to be reinstated. Kenyans want opportunities for employment because we have an increasing population of qualified, skilled young people who have nowhere in terms of employment opportunities which are not there for them. They want those things done. No Kenyans want to know about the kind of arrangement or coalition you have, but you deliver on those. That is point number one, which all Kenyans unanimously would agree for. And I think we are coming to an end of tribal politics because people have been taking advantage of this tribal politics for benefits of few, leaving many, to suffer.
Right.
So, and that is the kind of direction, the new dynamics of politics that we are likely to see in years to come.
All right. What about you? If elections are to be held tomorrow, will people of Yatta send you home or give another mandate?
I think they'll give me another mandate.
I knew you were going to say that. Why would they give another mandate?
Well, you see, as I've indicated when I got here, my development record is clear. I'm the first person to bring service close to them. We are talking of land registry. If people, any Yatta resident wants title
which is it
land
digitized, fully digitized?
We are in the process of completely building it up. We have done 70%, and the work is in progress. Next week, I'm launching Uduma Center construction for the first time in history.
Constituency level?
Constituency level.
Very good.
KMTC is ready.
Which one?
Yatta KMTC.
Very nice.
Is ready to admit students. My TVET is up and running. I've opened it and ensure that it is able to, to serve. And if you talk of issues to do with electricity, my electricity connectivity before I was elected, less than 40 villages out of 635 villages were connected to electricity grid. Now, as we speak, more than 20, and I'm continuing to push. That is 2 years of my work record. If you talk of schools, I'm the first MP even to bring modern school infrastructure. We are talking of tiling in schools to ensure that at least we don't spend money on the repair works.
Who is copying who? Your colleague from the other side of
No, but if you look at my record, my brother, I'm bringing international experience into the constituency.
You're doing well.
Because I used to serve globally. Now I'm serving my people with a lot of pride. Because I'm dedicated to make a change in the constituency.
Thank you. Watu wa Yatta, he's lighting up Yatta constituency, literally speaking. All right, that's where we wrap it up. We've done 1 hour already. Yes. Mheshimiwa Godfrey Ruku has not made it. I've just received a text message that he's been called somewhere. And Wakili Ishmael Nyaribo has also gone to court to attend to an urgent matter. That's how it happens.
But we have enjoyed.
We've enjoyed. Yeah. We've done well. We've covered an array of issues. And of course, being a member of parliament, he is well versed and he's not new to this set. So we are able to cover that. Mheshimiwa, thank you so much.
I appreciate it.
You see? You see?
I appreciate.
Usimwona huko kwa villages here. Asante sana.
Thank you.
Robert Basel, Member of Parliament, Yatta constituency. Let's take a break. When we come back, Good Morning Kenya continues, but now on the other side of Zinga, where Dora Manya will be talking about Serikali Jumuishi na Maendeleo, Wilson Sosiot, former NAT SecGen, as well as Dr. Makali Mulu, representing Kitui Central. Dora Manya will be handling that. My name is Victor Low. Good morning.